I know there's this misconception that for someone to be courageous means that they're never afraid. We tend to label people as courageous based on the things they do. But in reality, that's just not true. Courage in God is key to overcoming discouragement in life. Courage in God is the key to overcoming discouragement in life. Jochebed is facing a seemingly impossible situation. If she does nothing, her newborn son is going to die. Her 3-month-old is dead, right? That's for sure. If she does something, they could both die, her and her son. But after considering all of her options and the potential outcomes for each choice in front of her, Jochebed chooses courage over fear. For the next 3 months, she risked her own life to save her sons by keeping him hidden, which I think is truly a miracle. Because you know as well as I do, babies, especially newborns, cry all the time at the most inopportune time. So how she kept him hidden for 3 months really is a miracle. But 3 months later, she realizes she can't keep going the way she's going. She can't keep him hidden forever. And so she makes another courageous decision. She takes a basket, which would have looked very different than this one, but this is all we could find in our prop room. She took a basket. She took her 3-month-old son. Imagine she wrapped him up as tight as she could. She put him in that basket. She walked down to the Nile River, placed him at the edge of the river, and gave him a gentle push downstream. Now, I've been in the Nile River. There ain't nothing good in the Nile River. Stuff in the Nile River that will eat you. The river alone is dangerous enough, but then you take into account everything else that could have happened to him. Now, we know from the story that his older sister Miriam stands by and watches to see what happens to him, but what's she going to do? Can you imagine placing your newborn son in that kind of situation? A seemingly impossible situation. But Jochebed found strength in God and overcame her fears and challenges, and she acted with courage. And you know, as I was thinking about this message and doing what I'm encouraging you and challenging you to do, trying to put myself in her shoes and see things from her point of view, I got to thinking about how life really is full of seemingly impossible situations, isn't it? Some of us face more than others, but I just listed a few that either I have faced or know someone that has faced a seemingly impossible situation. Here's a few that I came up with. Forgiving someone who has severely wounded you can seem impossible to do, right? Coping with the diagnosis of a terminal illness. Breaking free from an addiction. Or how about recovering from a traumatic experience, or breaking the cycle of poverty, or managing and overcoming a mental health disorder, or rebuilding a relationship after a breach of trust. All of those situations can seem utterly impossible. And in those moments, just like Jochebed, we can become fearful. We can become discouraged. We can become depressed. We can begin to lose heart. And as we begin to review our options and the possible outcomes for the choices that we're faced with, we can feel like giving in sometimes, or maybe even just giving up altogether. But in those moments, if we trust in and lean on the Lord, who he is and the promises that he's made, then like Jochebed, we too may overcome our fear and find the courage to act. See, courage is not the absence of fear. I know there's this misconception that that for someone to be courageous means that they're never afraid. But in reality, that's just not true. We tend to label people as courageous based on the things they do. Based on some of the things I've done, someone might label me as courageous. So I've been in the military, went through basic training, and was willing to go to war for my country. You might say, oh, that takes courage, right? You got to be courageous to do that. He's never afraid. I was a firefighter for 6 years, was on the confined space and high angle rescue team during that time. So I was typically going into situations that most people were running out of or afraid to go in. And you might look at that and say, man, Pastor Jason just doesn't have any fear. I have bungee jumped 145 feet head first into the Nile River in Uganda, Africa. And you might look at that and say, man, Pastor Jason is really courageous. He doesn't have any fear. Or you might look at that and go, that man's just really stupid, right? But the truth is, in every one of those situations, I battled with fear. Some more fear than others, but in every one of those situations, I battled fear. And you know what's really true? Every Sunday before I get up here to preach, I'm always really nervous right before I get up here. A little fearful sometimes. And the truth is, when I found out we were having our first kid, I was a little fearful. I mean, you go buy a new car, they send you home with an instruction manual this thick. You leave the hospital with a newborn, living, breathing human. They give you nothing at all. When I was told I had a tumor at the base of my brain that was going to require surgery, having to figure out how to go tell my wife that news. There's a lot of fear there. Or just before having my second spinal fusion surgery after coming through the first one and remembering how difficult and challenging that recovery was. There was some fear there. Or when I moved my family here 7 years ago to a place where we knew no one, to pastor a church where we knew no one, and I'd never pastored a church as the lead pastor before, there was a lot of fear there. Listen to me this morning. I want everybody to look here and listen to me. What truly defines someone as courageous is not that they are never afraid. What truly defines someone as being courageous is that they act even when they are. That even in those moments that are causing them fear, they find the courage to act. See, courageous people are not paralyzed by the possibilities present in their seemingly impossible situation. Instead, courageous people are propelled by the possibilities present in their seemingly impossible situation because they know one thing. They know that God is present with them in those seemingly impossible situations.